Welcome back, guys, to the channel for another best bet video. My name is West Coast 22. I appreciate you guys being here. Today it is a week 12 of the college football Saturday slate. We are going to go over that. As I do in all my videos, please know that these are just my opinions. Your opinions and your bets should be different. That is the great thing about sports betting. We should be different. That's what makes it fun. Don't come at me because my bets are one way. Yours should be different. That's the enjoyment. We're going to start off our week with a game that should have been Friday night, but they switched it to Saturday, and that is in the Pac-12. The UCLA Bruins will go on the road to Austin Stadium to face my Oregon Ducks, who is ranked 11th in the country. Oregon coming off a pretty good win last week in the Palouse against Washington State, a team that we normally kind of struggle against. I'm always worried about playing the Cougars. UCLA took care of business in their home opener last week against Cal with a 24-point win. The Ducks, after losing not all but most of his offense, has found ways to score behind quarterback Tyler Shuck. 43 points in the opener. 43 points, 35 points, 78 points total in two games, and I will take that. It's a small sample size, I get it, but it's encouraging to see points being scored in conference with as much of the offensive ring around the rosy type situation that we had to do, players opting out because of COVID, and then players graduating as well. It was encouraging to see that. UCLA, on the other hand, they gave up 48 points in their opener to Colorado. Last week versus Cal, they only allowed 10. They found their defense. Again, this is only the third game for most Pac-12 teams, so it's still kind of undecided how teams are, how good they are, which teams are good, which teams struggle. So UCLA's defense being up one week, down the next week, kind of hard to see where they stand. The spread is 16.5 for the Ducks. The over-under is 64.5. Like I said, with so much unknown in the Pac-12 because it's so early in their season, 16.5 still seems like a lot, even though the Ducks are at home. Oregon's defense, complete contrast of the offense, returned most of its defense, pretty good majority, but I still feel like they're trying to find who they are this year. This game is, I say it probably every other video, especially in my NFL video, this is a numbers game to me. If Oregon can put up 35 to 40 points, can UCLA put up 25 to 30? It's a really tough game to bet because the spread's so big, and the over-under is kind of big as well. My money, I'm going to bet this game on the over. I think UCLA is going to put up some points. I think Oregon, this has a really good potential for Oregon to show up offensively and really put some points up. I haven't looked at the weather yet, and I probably should have, but I think it's just going to be cold. I don't know if it's going to pour in Autzen. I probably should look at that before I actually bet. So take this with a little bit of grain of salt. But I'm going to take the over, expecting Oregon's offense to put up some points, and I think 64.5 will be good to go. All right, next on the schedule, we go to a game that preseason, no way this game was circled to be a big game in the Big Ten, but it is. It is number 9, the Indiana Hoosiers going on the road to face number 3, Justin Fields, and the Ohio State Buckeyes. Last week, Indiana continued to do what they've been doing. They remained undefeated, shut out in Michigan State last week. Ohio State, Heisman candidate Justin Fields continue what he's doing and they're doing, tearing up Rutgers. Honestly, gonna be truthful, even though Indiana beat Penn State in their first week, week 2, week 3, week 4, I still didn't trust this Indiana team. I thought it was just bad Big Ten play, which it still probably is. Michigan's not good, Michigan State's not good, Penn State is clearly struggling. But I never really put a lot of faith or stock in Indiana, but I do now. Say what you want about the Big Ten being bad, Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, those teams. Yes, in years past, Indiana probably loses all those games. Doesn't matter. They're winning games in the conference where they're supposed to win games. where at the beginning of the year, they weren't supposed to do well at all. At all. Now they are. My faith is instilled in them. And that defense is the main thing. Yes, I think it's Penix Jr. Has scored points. They've done what they needed to do, but that defense on the side of the Hoosiers is what has been catapulting them to these victories and looking so good. Ohio State's still Ohio State. They haven't changed. One of the top offenses, a great defense, and take away that first half in their opener against Nebraska, where everyone started to jump off a cliff. Oh, this Ohio State team's so bad. First half of the first game of the season. Remove that, they've been completely dominant. The over-under is 66.5, and the spread is 20.5 for number 3 Ohio State. This is the test for Indiana. Everyone thought it was Penn State, and then they thought it was Michigan. Then they thought, we're at game 5 for them. Clearly, those teams they've played are not great, but they've taken care of business. This is the test for Indiana to really show who they are and what they can do. Nobody believes in them. And obviously, Vegas doesn't either. It's 20.5 for a top 10 matchup. Now, granted, that could just be how much Vegas and the sportsbooks value Ohio State. And I get that. But 20.5 for a top 10 matchup is brutal. I don't think Indiana wins this game. I just don't. I think Ohio State is that much better. But I do not see 20.5 points being where the spread should be. Indiana's not able to run the ball very well, and being one-dimensional is going to hurt them for a team like Ohio State. Ohio State's just too much. I believe they're too much on both sides of the ball. They can run, they can pass. Indiana cannot run the ball. Anybody who doubts Ohio State or Indiana, plus Indiana themselves, they've been given a chip on their shoulder since the beginning of the season, and I think that chip is even bigger now, seeing this 20.5 point spread that nobody believes in them. I think Indiana's going to be pissed off. I think they're going to play good football, but I just don't think it's going to be enough. I think Ohio State's that much better. The Buckeyes win, but I think Indiana covers the spread here. I think 20.5 is just too much. Plus Indiana plus 20.5. Trevor Lawrence makes his return to the Clemson Tigers, where number 4 Clemson will go on the road to Florida State to take on the Seminoles. Clemson had a much-needed bye last week after losing in overtime to Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence. So Trevor Lawrence, back from COVID, gets his cardio where it needs to be to pass, then gets an extra week to kind of get reset up. Florida State, 2-6 this year. Terrible, poor season. Lost to NC State. Just brutal. Bad season for Florida State. Like we said, Trevor Lawrence is back, and that is really, really bad news for the rest of the ACC, especially after a loss. The rest of the season for Clemson will be show-off time. Typically, Dabo doesn't like to do that. He likes to kind of pull off the pedal a little bit. That will not be the case, I believe, the rest of the year. Clemson needs to show the committee something. They need to show them, after a loss with Trevor Lawrence, they're a completely different team. Whether you guys believe it or not, that's what Clemson needs to do, and I think that's what they're going to try to do by putting the pedal down and score as much as they possibly can. DJ Uiagalelei played very well in Trevor Lawrence's absence. The losses I don't think were on him, or the loss I don't think was on him at all. But this is Trevor Lawrence's team. It's top 10 offense with a top 20 defense through the entirety of the stats to boot. Florida State, on the other hand, their loss last week against NC State clinched them a third straight sub-500 season, which is just brutal for Seminole fans. They're 2-6. They only have 3 games left on the schedule. No idea what the bowl season is going to look like, so maybe if they get lucky, they can get into a bowl and get 6-6. I don't know what all the rules are for COVID season, but their defense is 103rd in yards allowed, 101st in college football in points allowed, and 103rd in the country in points scored. They're a bad team on both sides of the ball. They're an absolute disaster, and unfortunately, they're playing the wrong team at the wrong time. The over-under is 65.5, and the spread is 34.5. For any Power 5 game, 34.5 points is a ton. However, Clemson needs to prove something, not to us, hypothetically, to the committee that loss was a fluke because of Trevor Lawrence. Believe what you want, that Notre Dame can beat them with Trevor Lawrence. That's not the point. They need to prove to the committee as much as possible that they can do more with Trevor Lawrence and bridge that gap between that loss. Florida State is the unfortunate team that has to be in the way of that on Trevor Lawrence's first game, and I think the Seminoles absolutely get smashed here by 40 plus. It's going to be disgusting. The spread is big in a Power 5 game, like I said, but I think Clemson needs to prove something. They're going to prove something. I'm taking Clemson minus 34.5 here. We go from Florida up to Carolina, where Appalachian State will travel to number 15, Coastal Carolina, in a huge game in the Sun Belt Conference. App State struggled last week against the Georgia Southern team, although they were 6-1, 6-2 now, of course. But they did not look very impressive last week. Coastal Carolina continued their undefeated season, beating South Alabama. This is going to be a really fun game to watch. If you're looking for a high-scoring game, I don't think you're going to find it here. Appalachian State pounds the ball, run. They're not a Navy type of run team, but they run the ball a lot. 261 yards on the ground per game, going up against Coastal Carolina that only allows 135 on the ground per game. Something's going to have to give. Both of these teams are very, very disciplined. They don't turn the ball over much. They create turnovers. They're methodical. It's going to be really interesting to watch who comes out on top here. The over-under is 48.5. Coastal Carolina is a 4.5 point favorite. Like I said, both these teams play really methodical football, not a bunch of big play potential in theory. You don't see 70, 80, 90-yard touchdowns from these teams. They control the clock. They wear teams down. They get first downs. It's what they do. They're a combined 13-1 on the season. 7-0 Coastal Carolina, 6-1 Appalachian State. However, Appalachian State is 1-6 across the spread, while Coastal Carolina is 5-1-1. But combined, they are 4-10 on the over. So, slow play. I think the defenses keep the game low. I hate betting the under, but 48.5 in a game like this with the way these two teams play, I think that's what I'm going to do on the under. 48.5, 24-20 final. We've already had one top matchup in the Big Ten, and we get another one as number 10 Wisconsin will go on the road to face number 19 Northwestern. Wisconsin, after waiting for 2 weeks, having 2 games canceled due to COVID, they were able to play last week and absolutely demolished Michigan by 38 in the Big House. Huge win. Northwestern, they kept winning the games that I believe they should win by beating Purdue. Wisconsin doesn't have a lot of big games left. They have Indiana coming up in 3 weeks or so. But outside of that, they don't really have a lot left on the schedule. I'm pretty sure this and Indiana are the last 2 games they have against a ranked team. They have to show out here to make an impression. They've only played 2 games this year, but they've shown that they're the Wisconsin of old, what Wisconsin football is. They pound the ball on the ground. They have an incredible defense. That is Wisconsin football. They averaged 218 yards in the first 2 games allowed on defense. Total yards, 218. Granted, it was Illinois and Michigan, but still, 218 yards in 2 games. Say what you want, play whoever. They're Power 5 schools. Incredible showing in their first 2 games. Conversely, Northwestern has also shown it can play defense. They're top in yards and points scored through 4 games. Again, they've not played a real big test, so this is going to be their first big test, but their defense is also pretty solid. 43.5 points is the over-under. Wisconsin is an 8.5-point road favorite. Both these teams play very, very similar football. Smash mouth in the trench, beat you with the guys up front, and it should be really exciting to watch. The difference that I think this game is going to come down to is Wisconsin's quarterback Grant Mertz, who had COVID, would have missed the games had Wisconsin had played their 2 games. Played last week against Michigan, luckily, but I think that's where the edge in this game is going to be, is Graham Mertz at quarterback for Wisconsin. On the road, I trust Wisconsin in this spot to cover those points, but I feel more comfortable with the over. The over is only 43.5. Yes, both teams can run the ball. Yes, both teams have pretty good defenses, but 43.5 in a top 20 game like this, I think people are going to find a way to make plays on the offensive side of the ball. And I think 24-20, just like I said last game, is a pretty manageable game between these two. I think considering it's top 20 matchup, 43.5 I think is a bit low for me. It wouldn't surprise me if it was super low scoring, but I think both these teams need a win, need to show off badly. So I'll take the over 43.5. All right, next on the schedule, we will head to the Big 12, where the Kansas State Wildcats will travel to Iowa State to take on the number 17 ranked Cyclones. Last week, KSU fought really hard, but they missed a potential 2-point conversion with 2 minutes to go against Oklahoma State, where they inevitably lost by those 2 points. Iowa State spotted Baylor a 14-point lead before they put up 28 unanswered in the second half to take control and take care of the Baylor Bears. The up-and-down season for Kansas State continues. This team is really baffling to me. A bad loss to start the year, then got a big win. They crushed Kansas, got crushed by West Virginia, almost beat Oklahoma State, which incredible defense. I didn't even think Kansas State would hang with Oklahoma State. Up and down, inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get. It's very frustrating as better. For Iowa State, Breece Hall continues to be the engine that runs this Cyclone offense. They go as Breece Hall goes. He leads the NCAA in rushing yards, and he's 3rd in rushing touchdowns. Iowa State needs him to run the ball, to be that engine. If he can get going, Iowa State is going to be just fine. At home, Iowa State is a 10.5-point favorite. The over-under is 46.5. Like I said with Kansas State and being a better, every time I bet on K-State, they screw me over. However, outside of being blown out by West Virginia, they've kept all of their games close. I believe the Cyclones win this game behind Breece Hall. They run him. He makes stuff happen. But I believe that Kansas State can keep this game close, and I think they keep it within 10 points. The Cyclones win, but I'm going to put my faith in Kansas State again to not get blown out and to cover the 10.5 points. Kansas State, don't do it to me again. Plus 10.5. Kansas State, I'm going to move on before I can think about it. 2 games to go here on the college football best bet video. Next up, we will head to the SEC, where Mississippi State will travel to number 13 Georgia Bulldogs in a SEC matchup. Mississippi State finally got their 2nd win of the year last year. Granted, it was against a really bad Vandy team, and it was only by 7 points, so not a lot to be excited about there. Georgia, 2 weeks ago, got obliterated by Kyle Trask and the Florida offense. Granted, Florida didn't do a bunch in the second half. The game was already on lock. 38 points or so in the first half. Georgia, brutal. That defense was shown what a really good offense can do. I didn't think that was going to happen at all. Mississippi State continues to be overvalued by Vegas, I think. They're 1-5 across the spread. Sportsbooks continue to think that Mississippi State is going to figure it out. No, they're not this bad. They're not this bad. They're not this bad. Yes, they are. They've proven that they are not that good. After KJ Costello and that big win on opening day, it was a fluke. Their offense is not good. It's just not. KJ Costello was benched last week for Will Rogers. It didn't really seem to spark anything against a really bad Vanderbilt team. I mean, 24-17 against a bad Vandy team. Yes, it's the SEC. Mississippi State was supposed to be better than that. Vegas needs to stop overvaluing them because they're just not good. Georgia did exactly what they're built to do last week. They were behind. They're not a team to catch up. They're just not. Stu Bennett and that offense, it is meant to be methodical, pound the ball, control the clock, wear teams down. They're not built to make those big plays, make those those quick drives, and score points. It's just not who Georgia is. Florida got ahead early, and unfortunately, that was that. 277 yards of total offense versus Florida, even being behind by that much. 277 is a brutal number to have total in that game. 44.5 is the total here. Georgia is a 24.5 point favorite, which I think is right. I think Vegas is giving Mississippi State what they deserve, big underdog. Luckily for Georgia, crushed by Florida, they get a bye week. Now they get a bounce back game, and I think they're going to do just that. Mississippi State is still a really bad team, and Georgia's going to get back to doing what Georgia does, shutting down offenses, being methodical, pounding the ball, running at those front D linemen, and taking control. Because of that, I think 24.5 is too high. A lot of you are probably going to disagree, but I think Georgia is going to get back to what they do. Mississippi State's not going to score a lot, but Georgia is going to pound the ball, run the ball. Time is going to absolutely bleed from this clock, and I don't think they're going to try to win by 50. That's not Georgia's game. I don't see them doing that. Georgia's going to handily win this game, and it won't even be an issue from the opening snap. But 24.5, I think, is too high. I think this game is more like a 27-7 type game. They dominate. Mississippi State might not even get 7, but 27-7, something like that, is kind of where I see this game. Start to finish, Georgia wins, but I think Mississippi State covers 24.5. I hope I'm right. That's just the way I feel. Sometimes you got to go with your gut. Last on the video today is a big top 20 matchup in the Big 12. It is number 14 Oklahoma State traveling to their in-state rival number 18 Oklahoma. As discussed earlier, Oklahoma State used their defense to hold on versus KSU 20-18. Not a great win for Oklahoma State, but hey, a win's a win. Oklahoma had a bye last week. Prior to that, they absolutely crapped on Kansas like everyone else has done this year. A lot of points to a little. Something's got to give here with this game. Oklahoma State has a great defense, 15th in total yards allowed, and they only give up 17.8 points per game, just a bit under 18. Chuba Hubbard, the last two games, after a stretch of running the ball very well, very effectively, has been held relatively in check the past two games. About 100 yards total in the last two games. It's bad news for Oklahoma State, considering Oklahoma is really, really good against the run, 13th in the country defending the ground game. Oklahoma, we all know about their offense. They score a ton of points. They've averaged 46 points a game on the year, and they have not scored less than 30 points in any game this year, and they've only scored less than 35 points twice. The over-under is 59.5, and Oklahoma is a 7.5 point favorite here. The crowded top of the Big 12 is really going to get sorted here with these two Big 12 matchups. Spencer Rattler, the quarterback for Oklahoma, will need, and I believe he will, continue to be a force through the air, putting a lot of stress on that Oklahoma State secondary. Oklahoma's defense, they've allowed 25 points per game. However, I think that number is a bit skewed. They allowed 9 points versus Kansas and then allowed 0 against Missouri State in their opener. So take out really, 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 really bad teams. This defense allows points as well. I think this game is going to be a typical Big 12 shootout, high-scoring game. The same thing we always see with Oklahoma, Texas. That's what I think this game is going to be. Yes, Oklahoma State has an incredible defense, but I think this is just a Big 12 shootout style of a game. Oklahoma finds a way around that defense. Spencer Rattler makes things happen. Oklahoma State goes up against an Oklahoma defense that's not that good. I think both teams score. I would be super, super not surprised if this game was one of those 2 overtime, 3 overtime thrillers where it was 58-58. It just wouldn't surprise me. Because of that, 59.5 is the over. I'm taking the over in this matchup where I think a ton of points are going to be scored. That's what I think. Take the over. No idea who wins. I don't really care. Take the over. Take the points. Guys, that is it for week 12 of college football. Those are the games that I picked. Typically, it's just top 25 games, and I kind of sort through the ones that aren't super crazy. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Again, let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you guys are putting your money on. I would love to hear it. Please look in the description. I got my Twitch link there, my Twitter link there. Please go toss me a follow. Go check me out. But also check out my other videos. Got the NFL Week 11 that I just put up as well. Go check that out. Let me know what you guys got your money on. Let me know what you are losing money on. Let me know. Talk to me. Maybe I made some bad bets. Call me a fool. Bring it on. Guys, I appreciate you. Have fun. Good luck this week. Make some money. We'll catch you next week. Peace.